known for tackling certainly hot button issues and wild interviews and audience interaction, with the audience cheering over and over again. Jerry, who can forget that? It ran from 1991 to 2018. Springer's publicist confirmed his death to CBS News this morning. We're awaiting a statement from his family. But before that, he was a politician.
Yeah. And he'd also, in a prior life, was a journalist.
Yeah.
And you're right, he was mayor of Cincinnati, I believe. What's interesting about Jerry Springer, and those of us who are old enough to remember his rise to prominence as the host of the Jerry Springer Show, remember that this was coming at a time when we still had shows like Donahue on the air and the Oprah Winfrey Show, right? But that's what the Jerry Springer Show started out as, and he saw it as a logical extension of his journalism. But then, so I think the idea at the time of its inception was to talk about some of the darker things that are happening in American culture. But then, as a critic once wrote in a profile in 2014, it's very quickly became, instead of expressing America's dark underbelly, he was rolling around in it, right?
Oh, yes. It became Cirque du Springer. It was a circus. It was the first time I had ever seen members of the audience yell directly at people on stage, and have the people on stage yell right back at them. And then when it happened sort of naturally, they eventually incorporated it into the show, and then you could almost guarantee that every show, somebody was going to get up and yell at somebody in the audience, and the person would yell back.
And Jerry.
My goodness.
But you know what is interesting about that, Anne-Marie, too? I recall, unlike, for example, Geraldo Rivera, who had a show at the same time for a couple of years, right? Who Geraldo would express his opinion one way or another, given the subject that he was talking about. You remember, Jerry never really did.
No. And
he would it was always like, you go, and then I'm just going to sit here with the microphone and roll my eyes and let the audience,
Brad, at the end of show, remember?
Yes.
Suddenly the mood would change completely.
And he'd say, take care of each.
And he would do these like closing statements that were always insightful and profound. And somehow he took this wild circus that had been happening the hour before and sort of distilled it down into like good grandfatherly advice.
I mean, that's right. This was, as we said, this is a man of high education. He'd been a journalist. He'd been a politician. And you're right. At the end of it, he would always say, I'm paraphrasing here, but he would say something like, take care of yourselves and each other. Right? But we just spent an hour.
People abusing each other, at least verbally anyway.
Right, verbally. Although there were sometimes fisticuffs that would break out. And the audience would go bananas. It really was a unique phenomena in American broadcasting. And he was at the forefront of that. And I had a chance, Anne-Marie, to meet him. I want to say it was maybe at the 2016 Democratic National Convention where I was covering it for CBS, and he came on. He came on and did a little thing with me on the air, and he was the nicest guy. He was very nice. He was very, flattering to me, and it's Jerry Springer, so you're like, oh my God, I'm talking to Jerry Springer. So this news comes as a shock. I mean, as soon as I saw the breaking news, I was pretty surprised. He's 79 years old, and I think you will never see a Jerry Springer and a show like the Jerry Springer Show.
No. That's not allowed anymore. Though I don't know if the show's still on, but his bodyguard, who was a former police officer,
what was his name?
Had
the bald
a show
dude
himself, and the show may still be on. And it was sort of like the evolution of the Steve. It's called the Steve Wilkos.
Steve Wilkos.
And I'm not sure, it may actually still be on, but that we should check his Twitter feed to see what he's saying. But that was sort of the evolution of the Jerry Springer show. When you say that, he sort of rolled his eyes. One of the things that he did actually really well, too, was treat the people on stage with compassion.
Yes, he did.
He didn't talk down to them.
He didn't talk down to them. Even though, I got to say, they would book people that, I mean, he may not have talked down to them, but oftentimes part of the MO of that show was to book people that were a little less than savory. I mean, that's the way I would.
I'm not going to say. They were colorful characters.
Colorful characters,
just say that,
even better,
right?
even better. Colorful characters.
All right, so...
And I will say, 12 million people would tune in to watch. Those are huge numbers.
I was one of them.
12 million people, like 12 million viewers, other than 60 Minutes, for something that's not, fiction or scripted television, nothing gets 12 million viewers anymore. Jerry Springer did.
All right. We'll be right back.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
There is a new streaming program on CBS News, America Decides, taking you inside American politics and American democracy.
The best stories, the most important stories, for the most reliable facts on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis.